The world is facing an unprecedented labor shortage that is threatening to derail the global economic rebound as it sparks widespread business bankruptcies and pushes the price of many supplies, including food, to sky highs. The crisis is so bizarre and unexpected that it seems like a situation portrayed in some sort of dystopian movie. It is the first time in modern history that the entire planet is facing a severe shortage of workers. And the weirdest part of it is that it started to emerge last year, while unemployment levels were still soaring. In 2020, only in America, 70 million jobs were lost throughout the recession. Lockdown mandates and business shutdowns led to mass layoffs and forced furloughs. The number of claims for unemployment benefits skyrocketed to levels last seen during the Great Depression of the 1930s. At this point, it's estimated that about 10 to 15 million people are still out of their jobs and facing long-term unemployment. Even though government benefits have expired at the beginning of this month, people are still not coming back to the labor force, at least not the pace most economists were expecting. Not so long ago, unemployed Americans were facing the greatest personal financial disaster of their lives. Millions were spotted at food distribution events that stretched for miles simply because they lost their ability to afford their basic needs. But now, we're suddenly facing a devastating worker shortage, and it feels like something is not adding up. One ominous aspect of this crisis is the impact it's having on global food supply chains. Recent reports describe that in some countries the shortage of workers is getting so serious that government officials are having to harvest crops themselves before they spoil and result in local food shortages and steep economic losses. That's the case in Vietnam, where many troops are now harvesting rice. In the United Kingdom, farmers are being forced to dump millions of gallons of milk simply because there are no truckers to collect the milk and deliver milk to stores. Meanwhile, in Brazil, it's taking roughly 30 more days than usual to reap coffee beans, which is causing a global shortage of coffee and sending prices to extraordinary highs. In the United States, meatpackers are trying to attract new employees by offering Apple Watches, and fast food chains are offering sizable bonuses. But despite their efforts, staff levels are still incredibly low, and food prices are on the rise. It's safe to say that we have never seen anything like this before. Many can still remember how chaotic last year's unemployment crisis was. At this stage, employers were expecting to see hordes of people desperate to find a new job. But even now that employees have options to choose from, it seems like they have simply disappeared from the workforce. Today, food industry executives say that there aren't enough people to grow, process, and transport our food, and this is threatening to push many small farmers and producers to the brink of financial ruin, while smaller food processing companies are on the verge of bankruptcy. Almost certainly, there is disruption, highlighted Decca Walker, BCG's agribusiness expert in Chicago. The general theme seems to be the roles with the least desirable working conditions are actually the ones we have the most pain with. According to the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, fruit pickers, slaughterhouse workers, truckers, warehouse operators, chefs or waiters are nowhere to be found. The global food ecosystem is facing severe operational problems due to the shortage of staff. Food prices have already been affected by rising commodity prices and skyrocketing freight costs. In August, prices went up 33% compared to the same time a year ago, according to an index compiled by the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. And they're about to surge even more, given that agriculture is one of the world's least automated industries. Malaysia, the world's second-largest palm oil producer, has lost 30% of the edible oil output, which is used in everything from chocolate to margarine. Vietnam, one of the biggest shrimp exporters on the globe, production fell by 60 to 70% this year, while in Italy, a fifth of tomato production has been lost due to the lack of truck drivers. I've been in this business since the 1980s, but I've never seen a situation like this, said Michel Farandino, a farmer in Foggia. Tomatoes are very perishable goods. There were not enough trucks to transport the crop to the processing plants in those crucial days of the harvest, she said. Consequently, food insecurity is also rising in many parts of the world as grocers pass the increased costs to buyers. On top of that, there are signs the labor shortage is curbing supplies. Last month, several wholesale distributors across the country, including Cisco Corp and United Natural Foods Inc., reported production delays and slowdowns for items ranging from bacon and cheese to coconut water and spices. Small cooperative dairy farms are in a particularly dire situation. We have family wage great jobs that have been open that we've been recruiting really hard for and have had trouble filling, said Patrick Kreitizer, Chief Executive Officer of Tillamook County Creamery Association. The Oregon-based dairy cooperative recently has been so short-staffed that board members are having to skip operational services to actually practically help in the fields. With the inflation we're seeing in the business and the inflation that we're seeing at the farm level, it is going to translate to the shelf. For many businesses, passing along those costs is a matter of survival, especially considering that they didn't have a proper opportunity to financially recover from last year's recession. Worker shortages are not only hitting farms and food processors, but also restaurants and bars. Across the entire hospitality industry, restaurants have been suffering the most since the onset of the health crisis, and many can't keep their doors open because they can't find personnel to serve their customers. Even with booming consumer demand, many industries are still struggling to recover. The emergence of several new virus outbreaks all over the world and renewed social distancing mandates are worsening bottlenecks in the global supply chains. The outbreaks are forcing the closure of several ports, processing plants, factories, and tightening border restrictions, which is limiting the supply of migrant workers. And that issue won't disappear when the health crisis ends. According to the Post-Gazette, the share of workers employed in agriculture has been falling for decades, amid a shift to cities and service sectors, and hiring for some jobs was tough long before the sanitary outbreak started. However, when analyzing the greater picture, never before in history have we had a shortage of workers across all industries. In fact, before the health crisis, many economies around the globe were reporting record employment levels. But the recession has come along, and our unemployment problem has become more persistent than most could have imagined. This should be a matter of concern for everyone. This disruption affects every person, business, and industry, and it's only aggravating with each passing month. In a recent article published by the economy expert Michael Snyder, his readers described the terrible conditions they're now seeing unfold in their cities. One of them wrote the following: "Where have all the people gone? When you drive down the highway in Fairview Heights and Swansea, Illinois, there are signs on both sides, now hiring. Rizzoli's, a fast food Italian restaurant, has a sign stating they will pay up to $15 an hour. Domino's is looking for employees. Sparkle Car Wash, a rental business, several others within a 2 or 3 block area. Panera Bread Company has signs posted outside they have to close early due to a lack of employees. Food items on our grocery shelves are dwindling, and they're never replaced. Some of the food is expired. I noticed when trying to purchase butter at Aldi's, it had the same expiration date as it did months ago. They put out expired butter and left it out to sell in the cooler. The same thing at Schnucks. You have to be careful and check the expiration dates. A lot of the food is either expired or is about to expire very soon. To make things even worse, at a time millions of businesses are hanging by a thread, our healthcare system has been completely overwhelmed, and social tensions are rising in every corner of the country. The federal government has decided to impose strict work restrictions on millions of workers who decided not to take the vaccine. Although vaccine distribution is an important step to mitigate the health crisis and put the economy back on track, no one should be forced to make that decision or be threatened with unemployment in case they do not comply. For various reasons, whether it's a medical concern, a lack of trust in government measures, or a lack of confidence in the effectiveness of the vaccine, millions of Americans have chosen not to be vaccinated. And now, the new administration may exacerbate the labor shortage as they enforce vaccine mandates to many workers. When these mandates are in full effect, we could see a national crisis of unimaginable proportions. One example of how dangerous these vaccination orders can be lies in the fact that law enforcement officials reportedly rather be fired than comply with the mandates. A local report outlines that in San Diego, 65% of the city's officers said they would consider quitting the force if the city were to impose a requirement. Moreover, an alarming 45% said they would rather be fired than comply with the mandate. The force currently has 1,971 members. According to the San Diego Union Tribune, 50% of those officers are not vaccinated. Now, if that half of the department were to be fired for non-compliance with the vaccine mandate, the city would inevitably collapse into chaos. The same is happening in the healthcare sector, where thousands of workers are quitting the workforce because they disagree with the government's mandate. And the timing could not be worse since the Delta variant is fast spreading all across the nation. That's why the new administration's measures are not only ineffective, but also harmful for our people and our economy. But still, no one seems to be concerned about the consequences this can have on our future. And what is happening in the United States is just a hint of what's going on all over the globe. We should all be prepared for even darker times, because the near-term outlook is only getting grimmer and riskier. Thank you very much for watching. If you found this video informative, we recommend to you 7-Year Apocalypse. It's the latest book from the economic collapse writer Michael Snyder. In the meantime, don't forget to turn the notification bell on to keep up with our next videos.